Welcome, my name's Mark Navey. I'm the lead pastor of Provision Church, and this is the Provision Church Conversations podcast. Thank you for being with us today. We have a couple of very special guests today, which I'm excited for. We have Micah Tyson and his daughter, Makenna Tyson. Thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for having us.
Cool. So, Micah, Makenna, tell us about yourselves. Micah, you can start since you're older, I guess.
Yeah, I'll start. So I am a recent elder at Provision, probably the least of the four elders, if I do say so.
Okay.
I don't know what that means, but whatever. I am married to Paige. We hit 20 years next year of marriage, which is cool.
That is awesome.
That is awesome. And we've got...
anniversary date?
Yeah, June 3rd.
June 3rd. Right.
Yeah,
So
20 years next year. Yeah. And then we've got three daughters, so Makenna and Kayla, who is just started middle school, and Amelia, who's in elementary school, and work for Bank of America. I've been here with Provision since, I guess, first meeting, and excited to do this. You know, Ken Ogden beat me to the punch, so he did beat me to the punch, but I'm not going to say I'm jealous about that, but I'm jealous. But I'm excited to be here today.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for being here. All right, Makenna, who are you?
Well, my name is Makenna, and I'm 13 years old, and I go to middle school. At Provision Church, I love hanging out with the kids. I get coffee ready every morning. I don't know, I just do things.
Very cool. And actually, today I saw you before we came here because you were doing something at school. What do you do for fun at school?
Cross country.
For fun.
Fun. It is debatable right now. It was hot
Partially.
That's awesome. That's cool. I respect cross-country runners. So good work.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, let's get into it. One of the things that we normally do is just kind of talk about something that's trending right now. I asked Makenna when we got here, what's trending? And it was almost like with no hesitation, you said...
VSCO.
All right, say that a little louder into the microphone.
VSCO.
Which is actually not a word. It's letters that are put together. VSCO is what you're referring to,
yes,
correct?
Yes.
Right, and then can you tell us what is VSCO? Because let's ask
idea.
Micah. Micah, do you know what VSCO is?
I have no idea.
Okay, all right.
I'm 41, Mark. I don't know.
So tell us a little bit.
Well, it is an app, but some girls mainly have started to make it like a lifestyle. Usually they put on scrunchies and Pure Vita bracelets.
When you say they're making it a lifestyle,
yeah,
you mean like the lifestyle tab in Instagram? Like what they do is like show you what they wear? Like what are you saying when you say lifestyle?
Yeah, or they make it kind of like how they do everything, like how they dress, how they eat. They like eat food. That's VSCO.
So it's like a food. It's like a life journal by photo.
Yeah.
Is it video too?
I don't really know. I don't have the app because I don't really care.
Okay. So what makes you know that it's trending?
Well, you just see everyone doing it.
So the people taking pictures of like food and what they're wearing?
Yeah, pretty much. It's pretty much that.
It's like a Kardashian app almost.
That's our culture now.
Yeah, I know.
I don't really know, though. I don't have it, so I don't know what's going on in that app.
So I'm not that old, but I think when I was coming out of college, this app existed. And I'm fairly certain at that time it was almost strictly a photo editing app.
That's probably it then.
And then you uploaded that photo that you edit into Instagram or wherever you're using it. But now it's
an app where you can post it.
It's a sharing app.
Yeah,
well, social media.
So why would you use that instead of Instagram? Like, what's making that trend instead of Instagram?
Well, because Instagram is mainly for like every type of lifestyle, but this app is for like people who wear Birkenstocks, scrunchies, Pure Vita bracelets.
So do dudes use this? Do guys use this?
Some. Some.
Okay. It's mainly so you would say right now, main demographic, middle school girl. High school girl?
Maybe a few, but mainly it's middle school.
Okay. Good to know.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
They have weird sayings, too. It's funny.
That are only used on VSCO?
Kinda. They're used in school.
Okay. It's middle school sayings.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Do you have a for example?
And I oop. There you go.
I'm sorry, I had no idea.
I don't know what that was. And I oop.
Say that again slower.
Oh my gosh. And I
And I
oop.
oop.
And I oop. Like A-N-D space I space O-O-P.
What does it mean?
I don't know.
Like, is that if somebody
You
messes
know
up?
what it
You know what it means? You're just
You
not
know
telling
what it
us.
means.
It just means and I oop. Like, I don't know.
Like I messed up or?
No, like
Yeah.
alley oop.
No. I don't know what
so
that
give
is.
us so for all of our listeners right now that have no idea what you're saying
Yeah.
or what we're talking about an app. We're talking about a culture for middle school girls, and there's at least a few sayings, of which one is and I oop. If you have no idea what that means, it's okay. But if
Neither do I.
if you're in class at Piedmont Middle School and a girl near you says and I oop, what would be the conversation that leads her to say that? What would be...
Why would she say
Yeah.
that?
I don't know. People just say it just to be random. Like, you'll be in class sitting and some girl will just go, and I oop. You know, it's weird.
And people laugh.
Yeah.
So,
Kinda.
like, teacher's calling roll, and she calls a girl's name,
Yeah.
and the girl, instead of saying here, would be like, and I oop.
Yeah. Except it's just in the middle of class. People are talking and you'll just hear a random and I oop. Like, it's, yeah.
I love middle school.
I mean, it's just no good reason for it. Yeah, but
There's one more. This one I don't like at all. It's
That I don't like
What
it
is it?
either.
it's just a noise.
it's just a noise.
Yeah.
And you think that originates from VSCO?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
A lot of
Yeah.
VSCO girls use it. It's interesting.
So if on Sunday from the stage, in my sermon, I was like,
Like
middle
skeet,
school girls
skeet,
in the room
okay.
understand. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
they gotta do smaller. Yeah. that's
I would,
true.
yeah. I would pretend I didn't teach you that.
Okay.
Wow. That's cool, man.
You heard it here first.
We
McKenna
survived.
did not teach me that.
I don't like
Not
them
that
at
the whole
all.
world doesn't know now, but yeah.
This
you
is
just
this
don't
is the
know.
rare experience of me saying both of those things because I don't like saying them at all.
Wow.
They're annoying.
Well, good to know. Thank you for updating us. The other thing we had on trending was just weather. I don't have a lot of time to talk on it, but I mean, Amazon forest fires right now is pretty huge, and then
But there's a.
got a tornado coming in.
Did you see that? Like, there's a lot of misinformation now coming out. Like, New York Times posted that a lot of what's burning is actually stuff that had already been cleared. Not that it's necessarily good, but a lot of it's farmland where they're burning to get ready for crops,
Oh.
and so it's not quite like old forest is burning per se.
So when you see the memes that you can rebuild this over a picture of Notre Dame, but you can't
Yeah.
rebuild this over pictures of Amazon, it's not quite what it
I mean,
seems.
some of it is they've already been deforested, but it's not like necessarily new forest or old forest lost.
Right,
You know,
right.
yeah. So some of that New York Times a little bit debunked some of it.
I don't consider myself a tree hugger, but
Right.
I definitely am in favor of protecting
Yeah.
natural like wonders like the Amazon
Right.
rainforest and stuff.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it was already. It wasn't good that it was deforested,
Right.
you know, but
Right.
it's there now.
Right.
But it's not necessarily like they were taking new or old forest away
Yeah.
per se.
That's good.
So, yeah, there's a lot of misinformation. I follow a guy on Twitter who's he's an interesting guy, a weather guy. And he works for the Cato Institute, which is sort of a libertarian think tank. So
Yeah.
he'll spend a lot of time sort of just putting what's real out there versus what's not. And so he gets a lot of hate. He believes in climate change, for example, but he's not a big proponent of necessarily changing everything for it. So
Right.
he sort of balances some of that. So it's interesting to follow him. But he came out like, hey guys, this isn't quite what they're saying.
That's good. I feel like I haven't seen any like real news on it.
Yeah.
I've only seen kind of the internet.
Well, like even the memes were
Space
saying
talking
like it's 20% of the world's oxygen comes
Yeah,
from there.
I've seen that.
Ryan, the guy's name is Ryan Mao. He's like, dude, it's 6%. Like, I mean, it's still a lot, but
Yeah.
don't say it's 20%
Right.
if it's not 20%.
Yeah, I think that happens a lot in kind of Twitter culture. Is you have an amazing stat with 6%,
Yeah.
but you feel like you need to make it better
But
with.
it's a bigger story with
And I've
20.
seen that with guys I agree with and guys I disagree
Right.
with. Where like one guy was talking about abortion, and he was saying something about one stat that was a high stat, and on his post he made it like triple what the high
Yeah.
stat was. And I was like,
Don't do
there's no
that.
need for that, right?
Right.
Yeah. So
They just want to make it seem more like a drastic measure or something.
I mean,
I guess
drastic measures get us to act on it.
Exactly.
And, people are donating money to it, and I mean, probably there needs to be some efforts to stop deforestation for sure.
They're trying to make it seem more important.
Yeah, but it is overblown at times too.
well, at least we're using plastic straws now. I mean, paper straws now. So we're
They're
making
terrible. They're just terrible.
Listen. On VSCO, it's metal straws.
Oh, they are metal straws now.
Okay, so my wife loves metal straws.
Yes.
She swears that stuff tastes better through metal straws. I don't know. Have you ever used a metal straw?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you heard the story about the lady who fell on her metal straw?
Yes.
No.
Went through her eyeball?
Yes.
Ooh.
Killed her.
Yes.
Ooh.
I saw that.
Yeah. So, maybe makes it taste better. Is it worth the chance?
Saves the world, kills you. I don't know. It's trade-offs there. There's a balance.
It saves the turtles, not the world.
That's true.
Oh,
yeah.
right. But save the turtle, save the world.
I mean, we've adopted metal straws. The girls, y'all use them.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, cool.
Some.
Yeah.
We have like 5.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I'm a fan. I just think it's like you should walk with your metal straw like you walk with scissors. Just
Right.
a little extra care.
Go through your eye.
Cool. All right. Well, it's usually during this time of our time together that we are sponsored by someone, and I always forget to bring something, and I have literally nothing in my pockets right now.
I mean, you could say I got a Disney cup.
Oh, show your Disney cup.
I do have
Yeah,
a Disney
today
cup.
we're sponsored by, we're not sponsored by Walt Disney Company. And so if you go to Disney World, tell them you're from Provision Church. Or actually, even more locally, you could go to the Concord Mills Disney store.
That's right.
Tell them you're from Provision Church. You will get a 0% discount and a weird look. So
Yeah. It's worth it.
you go.
make sure you tell them. Make sure you tell them you're from Provision Church.
Yep.
It'll be good. Now, and we actually urge you to use that discount at every store.
Tell them about Provision a lot.
And if that ever gets you a discount, let us know.
You can take your bulletin. I don't know if we call it bulletin, whatever we
Zaxby's.
call it. It is Zaxby's, yeah.
Right.
And
Zaxby's
Moe's.
does get you a discount.
Moe's
Moe's
as
does a
well.
discount
Yeah,
too?
they do a church discount.
I
yeah.
did not
on
know.
Sundays.
That's good.
So,
Makes me
yeah.
like Moe's.
I know.
Well, this Sunday we were studying Psalm 81. That's where the message came from. It's got about 16 verses in it, and the title for the sermon was Listen, and that's kind of a theme from those verses. And so one of the things that when we talk about listening to God, I think that can be a really confusing statement, phrase. What does it mean to listen to God? I think there's a lot of misconceptions around that, but I'd be interested maybe to hear some of what you think people believe listening to God means and what it actually means to listen to God. And I'll open that one up to you guys.
I mean, I think what people think listening to God is there's going to be this big booming voice that talks down to you from the skies. That's how God's going to communicate with you. Or, I think this is more subtle, but I think I've seen a lot of people do it. Is they look for like clues, and the clue is that must mean it's something from God. Something falls a certain way, or something happens in nature a certain way. Well, that's obviously God talking to me. It's the sort of miracle or clue in nature we're looking for. And I've seen people do that and try to attribute something that's, it's just a leaf falling, like to God's direct spoken word right there. And that's a very dangerous thing.
Well, let me ask you this then. I was actually talking to someone recently, and I can't remember who it was. And the example was that they had been considering A, B, or C, and then someone called immediately after they were praying through God Make It Clear. Is it A, B, or C? And that person was asking about B.
Right.
And because they called immediately after the prayer, it was like, could it have been more clear that like God was helping me understand? What would you say to that? Could that be good? Could that be biblical? Could that be listening to God? Or is that superstition? How would you argue for that?
I mean, if it was me, I would have been like, it was just a coincidence. But then maybe later on, I would have been like, well, maybe it was really God talking to me. Maybe he wants me to go down the path of B,
What is a coincidence?
Just something that happens that makes you think, like, that's where you're going, what's going to happen. I don't know.
But it may not be connected.
I guess something where that question's leading is, I've heard some Christians say there is no such thing as coincidence. Agree or disagree?
I mean, I think obviously we're all in God's will, and so anything that happens to us isn't by coincidence. It is willed by the sovereign God that we're under. I think things can happen in circumstance that can come off and be God speaking to me through someone else. I do think that's possible, and that's partly why the church is important. I know even in I use this example a lot because we teach Dave Ramsey's class a lot, and it's just uncanny, but God speaks to my wife differently than he does to me about finances. And so I think there are situations where God is speaking through someone to you. And we often call that coincidence. Oh, I can't believe you said that, because that's just total coincidence. It's not really coincidence, though. That was God orchestrating it to get to you.
But and that's kind of where I would lead there is I do think that that God uses providence, that he blesses, and that the hard part is not discerning whether that was coincidence or God working, or the hard part is whether God's providence is leading you to that decision or away from that decision, and whether we should see what happened as God working towards that end or working to some other end, and we're confusing it all together. Is that, you know what I'm saying? So like if I need to talk to you about, or keep on this, about B, but God was just using that so I would grow, but you're taking that for yourself. See, that's where I think that could be a little more
false
difficult.
signal. Almost.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's why you can't just base every decision off of one conversation too. It takes a lot of prayer, a lot in God's word, and you know, it's almost uncanny too. A lot of times it won't just be one. I've seen in the past, it'll be 2 conversations I have, or 3 conversations I have, and they're sort of, okay, I'm thick, God, but I'm getting it. You know, I'm thick skull, but I'm getting it. You're using one here, and one here, all on that same path, and that's the danger of having, in a multitude of counselors, there's wisdom, right? And that's sort of where, don't just take one conversation, see if it's repeated.
I think that's key. I think that's where that goes. So when that person came to me and was telling me that story, I hope part of what they were looking for was, do you affirm that? Like, do you affirm the choice I'm making? Because if I am, now you not only have that, hopefully, measure of providence from God, but now you also have the church affirming it, and then go to someone else. And I think that is listening to God, because he gives you circumstances, and he gives you the church, and he gives you his word. Those are the 3 things that we identified on Sunday as ways that God speaks, and that primarily being his word as the way he speaks. And then putting those things together. And when it's confusing, or when maybe I go to 2 people and they say one thing, and I go to 2 other people and they say another thing, then maybe we just wait.
I think patience is a hard one, because I think when the message is confusing, we need to give patience, and we don't want to, because we want an answer quickly. But because also in the middle of all this is one who is opposed to God, trying to send messages as well.
That's a good point.
And that's why patience is good, to see sort of if a message is repeated by people you know are godly, that people you know, you've trusted them before, you know, and maybe something. And so you're getting more, I don't know, direction from people you know are in God's word, and you know you're not getting a false signal as much when you see multiple godly people giving you that message.
So I kind of trailed off, but I don't know.
That's okay. So
I was just like, huh? Okay, so I don't know if we're back to the coincidence thing or not, because I hope we are.
Bring it on back. Yeah.
Going back to that, I feel like in the moment I would think it was a coincidence, but then later on I would be like, that was definitely not a coincidence.
That's true.
Yeah, that easily could have just been God talking to me.
I think that's good. I was thinking about that actually recently. The idea: do we count our blessings often enough, and give God credit for the things he's done often enough? Because, like, you're right, if we're not going back and reviewing situations, we might not give God credit where he deserves it. So that's cool.
Well, sometimes somebody says something to you and you don't think about it at the time, and then later you're like, oh man, they said that. Like, maybe somebody else says it, and then you're like, oh, that person also said that, and then you put it together. That wasn't coincidence, that was providence.
Yeah, agreed. A couple more questions on Psalm 81. It starts out the whole thing starts out talking about singing to God, shouting for joy, raising a song. These instruments playing. It's part of a festival that God's commanded. And we talked about that God gave us a reason for music. That music was designed for God's glory. And so here's a question out of that then. Why is congregational singing important? That's part one. And then part two is it wrong for someone not to sing?
I feel like for this question, congregational singing is pretty important because it's another way to worship. It's sitting and listening to you talk is not the only way of worship. Singing is, praying is. So it's definitely an important part of church. And it's not wrong for someone to sing, but because that might not be how they want to worship. Like, everybody has a different preference on how to worship, kind of. And so I feel like if they're not singing, that's how they don't want to worship, or they just don't want to sing.
Okay.
So
Cool.
So obviously, I think it's important. My wife is in the praise band, so I better say it's important, right? But I think it does give us a sense of community when we sing together. Mm-hmm. And I think, does God need our songs to Him? No, He's still God, whether we sing to Him or not. But I think He gave us song to bring us together in one mind, unified together in song. I think it's, I think it's important to do congregational singing on Sundays rather than solos. And that's just personal opinion, but I think there's an importance. Solos are important, and I like to hear solos when I listen to radio, but I think when I'm with the body of believers, I want to sing together. And so I think that's important. And I'm not knocking solos or anything, but I just think there's a communal aspect to it that God wants from us together.
No, I think exploring theologically the role of solos in congregational life is worthwhile.
Yeah.
And I don't know that it's been explored a whole lot.
Right.
I think we kind of fell into solos because people wanted to be able to use their talents. I'm using hyphen or quotation marks, air quotation marks. They wanted to use their talents, but why would we not use our talents with everyone? Right. What's the point of making people sit there and listen, especially for music? I guess I could make an argument for it, but I can definitely make an argument against it as well.
I think the argument for it is one of excellence, that you get a really good singer singing in front, and you get excellence out of it when they do it well. But I would draw back, I think, during congregation together, I think it's important for the congregation to sing together. I go to concerts for solos, and that's different in church.
Which honestly, I think there's a place for churches to do things like concerts together.
Right.
And even like in our church, we don't do a whole lot of hymns. I don't think there's anything wrong with us having like a hymn service where it's like, hey, this is going to be different. We're going to try something different. Yeah. I think there's places for that kind of thing.
We know where churches fall and where we fail in this is who's singing the Psalms right now. Paul said sing psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs. Like, we do good on hymns and we do good on spiritual songs, but I wish the church would make a better effort to put psalms to music and do that.
Yeah.
I feel like some soloists, like, this is not my mother at all.
Good clarification.
Good call.
Gotta say that. I feel like
that was for you, Paige.
Love you. Some soloists, I feel like, just want to hear their voice. I'm not saying all, but some of them just want to hear their voice and
it can become about the soloist. It can
be able to,
careful.
Be able to see the people, like, I don't know, like it, I guess.
Yeah, and I think it's hard to judge people's intentions.
Right.
Exactly.
But definitely with solo singing and music, I think the question of ambition should be raised.
Yeah.
So if someone is, and I've seen this in numerous churches, where someone is going to the music guy and being like, let me sing, I really want to do this song, like, really let me do this solo, for what end?
Right.
Like why you?
Yeah. And
why does it matter?
Yeah.
And ambition, I think most times ambition is sinful.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying every time. J. Oswald Chambers would say every time, or J. Oswald Sanders, anyway, one of those guys would say every time ambition is sin. I don't know about that, but I think especially in music, ambition comes from pride. Pride is sin.
Hey, and I think is it wrong for someone not to sing? I think the question goes back to, why are you not singing? If you have this Savior that has saved you and has brought you back, has redeemed you, has given you new life. You deserve death. You deserved hell. He saved you. He got on the cross for you. Like, there ought to be some part of us that does want to sing to that. And we were given music as a gift. And I'm not musically talented. You had Ken on. I mean, Ken and I are like full 180s on musical talent, right? I'm good at turning the radio on loudly. That's about all I got. But even though I've made this clear, you know this, Ken even mentioned it last week, like my style of music isn't played in any church ever. But I still sing everything that's there. If it's on the screen, I sing it because it's not about my style. It's about who I'm singing to and what he has done. And so I do think some people are uncomfortable singing in public, and I get that. But I think at some point that singing should be something we do out of rejoicing.
Yeah. Well, and I agree with you. I think there's really two good reasons to think about singing congregationally. One is out of joy for what God has done for us, which is really Psalm 81, what it's compelling us towards. And then two, understanding the purpose of congregational singing. That if we understand why we're singing and what we're singing for, it would probably drive us to sing. Yeah. And then I do think there's times, like, I've definitely been in situations where I've stopped singing because I just need to pray while other people are singing around me and just praise God with my own words in that time. And there's even a movement for music like that, spontaneous worship, where we're just singing whatever comes to mind. That's okay, but like I can pray quietly and do the same thing.
And I feel like if people saw that and didn't know you were praying and just like didn't sing at all, people would kind of judge you. I mean, be like, he's not singing.
That's why I think it's a conversation to have more than a judgment to make on somebody about why they're not singing. You know, on the flip side, one of the things I love, and my wife, being in a praise band, says this too, is they get to experience more than probably I do, but when a congregation sings together, it's a powerful, especially for like the praise band that's hearing it sort of sung back to them, is just a powerful, powerful thing when the people of God sing together and praising God. There's just something about it. God made it, and it's just something about it.
And think about the fact that God wants it forever.
Right.
That he's not going to ask for solos in heaven. He's asking the choirs of angels and the choirs of saints to be singing holy, holy, holy all together for all eternity. And so there is something about our unified voices making a melody of praise towards God that is eternally good. And that's important. I think you're right.
One that shakes the thresholds. I mean, that's like the verse for all metalheads. We're all excited about that in heaven. That's goes loud enough to shake the thresholds. Right? Amen. Well, that's great.
Yeah. What did the apostles turn to in prison? Turn to hymns. And they turn to singing. So there's power in that.
There is.
So I agree with you, Makenna. I think that we shouldn't judge other people if they're not singing. But I would say if you're in our congregation and you're not singing, and your only reason for not singing is that you think you're not a good singer, I would say that's wrong. But if you're
because I'm there, I'm not a good singer. I'm with you.
You should see him. He's not a good singer, but he's still over there jamming, you know, just raising his hands.
But I don't think everyone is wrong for not singing.
Right.
And I'll add this encouragement on top of that: sing loud. I think that's a part of that. Is we're singing Psalm 81, raise a song, shout for joy. I mean, those are blow the trumpet. Those are not quiet things. And last addition to this, before we move on, for me at least, is that's a tension in our church. As a tension in every church is decibel level. Because too quiet, and people might not feel able to sing. Too loud, and now it's uncomfortable. And we try to aim in the middle of that. And I know there's probably going to be people who would love to be one way or the other on that. And so I think we just continually ask for grace for that, and put that kind of in the we want to continue asking for people to, in that grace, not be on one side or another of an aisle, but let's all be together and recognizing there's tensions.
Well, and some of it's the building you're in too. I mean, a gym isn't made; it's made for basketball, or it's not made for acoustics. But I also think the grace in music is very important. You know, it's so important that it's funny. I've always sort of joked to myself as I'm like the metalhead cousin sitting in the corner off by himself when it comes to music. But it's also one of those things I've never gone and complained like, hey, why aren't you doing my style of music? Because I think I always remember John Acuff tweeted one time that his wife came out of church and said, I really didn't like the songs today, and that's a great thing. And he said, why? And she said, because I'm sure there was somebody there who did. True. And it's not about me. And that's what I always remember that when it comes to music.
Yeah. I've actually had a couple conversations with people on one side or the other. And I think what's been really cool is there wasn't judgment in those conversations. Right. This is what I like, but I'm not making, I will never make a stink about that.
Yeah.
And that's been really beautiful to have some of those conversations that way.
That's it.
Makenna, how do you think about the music?
I like it. I mean, I'm over there with the youth. We have a good time over there. I mean, when I look over and just see people singing and hear it, it's kind of nice, to be honest. It's like, wow, like all these people are here.
That's cool.
Singing. Mm-hmm.
Very cool. I do want to ask this. There's one more question I thought I might ask, and I'm not seeing it. Oh, yeah, here it is. Sorry, I'll edit that. There's one more question I want to ask, and that is, do verses 8 and 13 make God seem weak or needy? And I'll read those two verses real fast. Verse 8 says, Hear, O my people, while I admonish you, O Israel, if you would but listen to me. And then verse 13 says, Oh, that my people would listen to me, that Israel would walk in my ways. Does that make God seem weak or needy to you? How would you describe God coming out of those verses?
No, because not really. He just wants his people to follow him. I mean, it's like Instagram. If you follow someone, you're going to have to like them. So
maybe.
Sometimes. In some sort of form, you're going to have to like them a little bit. But like in this, I feel like he just wants them to follow him. I mean,
so if I was at school with you, or if one of your friends tomorrow at school was like, Makenna, and you're like, hold on, I'm doing something. And you're like, Makenna, please listen to me. And you're like, give me a second. Makenna, please listen to me. If you would just listen to me. Does that person seem like he has authority, or does that person seem like he's in need?
More in need, because the person wants attention, and
so how is that different?
The person
How's that different from verses 8 and 13 that uses almost similar words?
You're confusing me now.
So God in verses 8 and 13 of Psalm 81 is saying, listen to me. If you would just listen to me.
Mm-hmm.
And you just said that your friend would seem needy saying that. Why does God not seem needy saying that?
Maybe I see in different preferences, because I see, like, a friend would be like, okay, well, they're just needy, I guess. But then if it's God, you're like, okay, wow, like, he's asking me for something.
There's a difference in authority.
I think
just preferences, I guess.
I think that's a good answer.
Yeah, there's a difference in authority.
They're not the same people.
Well, it's funny, Mark, as I think about this, like, and these are questions sometimes are verses you read as a father that's different. And it's not so much me, like, begging my kids to listen. It's me, hey, listen to me right now. And we do that for their own benefit. I don't ever jump on your case. Or if I get it wrong, I apologize. I repent to you if I get it wrong. I just don't much. Y'all are in trouble. But I get the face. But when I say, hey, listen to me, it's cause there's something I've got to tell you of importance. And I'm doing that from, in that moment, that position of authority that I have or that Paige has. And so I see this as not needy. I see this as a father to a child saying, hey, you're off track. Listen to me. I'm trying to keep you from messing up even worse.
Yeah.
And so that's how I read it in that tone.
I agree. And I think fatherhood has helped that for me. Yeah. I think Makenna, as not a father, and never will ever be a father, it doesn't keep you from understanding that. But like, I can think of the other day in Walmart, my kid had run across the aisle. We were like in one of the main aisles. He'd run across the aisle. And over from my right, this dude is coming across on one of the riding carts. You know what I'm talking about? He's coming pretty good. I don't know if I think he's go, but it was probably top speed. And Owen starts running back towards me, and I'm like, Owen, stop! And Owen doesn't listen. He just keeps coming, and I mean, he's about to get run smack over. And I'm like, Owen, listen, stop! And part of what, as I read this, I was kind of thinking the same thing, that if Owen understood the consequences of what he was doing, that it would help him. And so it's not needy, it's you're about to be hurt.
Right.
And I care about you.
Yeah.
And so that's authority, not need.
Right.
And it's actually
authority out of love
freedom,
too. Yes.
Freedom too, because I'm not making you listen to me, but out of out of my grace and out of my goodness, I'm letting you make a decision.
Yeah.
Quick question: did he stop?
No, the guy in the cart had to stop, and then it was kind of one of those weird things where they both stopped, and then it was like, I'm sorry. So, yeah, everybody was okay then.
Incident at Walmart.
The guy in the cart did not seem amused, even though Owen is so cute. But, no. Cool. Well, I thank y'all for taking time answering those questions well and aptly handled. Our last question, it's kind of our odd-off question, is what was your most memorable vacation?
Our first Disney trip, we were in a restaurant. I was sitting on a bench and fell off of it and cried for like ever.
True.
So when you think of your most memorable vacation, you think about falling off a bench and
Yes,
crying.
because I will never forget that trip.
Not seeing the castle for the first time. They fall off the bench. That's awesome.
Just-
yeah.
Yep. That's all I remember, really. Just falling off a bench and crying.
Consider that.
In a Mexican restaurant,
How
you
old
know?
were you? How old was this?
8?
Okay.
7 or
Yeah.
8?
Okay. Y'all just got back from Disney.
We did.
That
We
was
did.
fun.
Yeah. Good job.
Yeah.
I miss it. I want to go back.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Micah, you have one?
I mean, I think our Disney trips, probably the Disney cruise,
Oh, yeah, that was
because
fun.
I didn't really want to go on a Disney cruise. I just didn't want to get on a boat. You
Yeah.
know, I sort of like dry land. Other than I like to fly over dry land, but I didn't want to really get on a boat.
It's all your fault, Mother.
Yeah, I know that's true. Yeah,
It's for you, Paige.
We got on a boat for you.
So, like, we're still working on. I got on a boat. Paige needs to get on a plane and let's go somewhere.
Yeah.
Which actually her work's about to make her to, so I'm really excited about
I
that.
heard about that.
Yeah, it's because she's already nervous about
Yeah.
it. That's why you're hearing
Yeah,
about it.
that's right.
But I think that cruise was really.
It was really
I enjoyed
fun.
it, and I'm like, oh man. So next year for our 20th anniversary, we talked about doing a cruise.
cool.
Maybe.
Hey, I'm going with you.
Nope.
Cool.
I got dressed up as a pirate on that cruise, by the way.
No. So I think the cruise was just because I didn't want to do it, and then I really enjoyed it. Was pretty memorable.
That's cool. Well, I think about some of mine, and some of my most memorable are the ones I've done with other people. Like, I think we went to Disney together
Yeah.
with the Ogdens last
that was
year.
fun.
Or this year.
This year.
Yeah.
This year, yeah,
January 1st,
January.
That was a lot of fun. It was cool. Like, it's neat to do vacation with other people.
Yeah.
And then so many with my family growing up. But I will tell you, and even recently with the boys, like doing stuff with the boys. But I will tell you for sure, my most memorable vacation was, I think, like our 1-year anniversary. We went to the Outer Banks.
Nice.
And it
What
was
is that?
the weather was perfect, and it was like lonely on the beach.
Yes.
And so I was out there fishing in the sunsets on sandbars, and my beautiful sun-kissed wife was laying out on the beach
Yeah.
behind me. I mean, it was like something from a movie where it was like, this is surreal goodness. Like, that's
Yes.
how it felt. And I think for as long as I live, that will be my sweetest vacation.
Yeah.
Aw,
We did
that's
a
cute.
week at Outer Banks at Nag's Head earlier this
Yeah.
year. and
It was my
Yeah,
birthday.
it was your
nice,
birthday. It was
nice.
incredible.
Yeah.
I'd never really stayed out, or at least I think I did when I was younger, but I didn't
We
remember.
had donuts for my birthday cake.
Yeah, very nice.
Mhm.
Good
Duck
choice.
Donuts.
Oh, yeah,
Duck
I've heard
Donuts.
good
Yeah,
things about
they're
that.
really good.
Yeah,
so
that was really
very
good.
cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, I hope everyone has had memorable vacations, and if you haven't, then take a vacation soon. Doesn't have to be expensive. Vacations
No.
don't have to be expensive
Mm-mm.
or long, but they're
Right.
good. They're good things. Awesome. Well, guys, Makenna, Micah, thank you for being on our podcast.
Thank you for
today.
having us.
It
Absolutely.
was really cool.
Yeah, I did better than I thought I was going to. So you
Yeah.
know,
So good. Yeah.
I know. It's like-
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. We hope you will listen in, watch next week as we do this again.
Awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you, Mark.
Thank y'all.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.